One of our favorite topics in Culture Smart. So we should be able to see culture as a KPI, big yellow screen. If you're not seeing a big yellow screen, something is not working, let me know. No worries, Michelle, if you have technical issues, absolutely just stay on chat and just make sure that you can see the screen and that you can take part in the polls, etc. Right, so culture is a KPI. Let's consider, right, so we love to have positively impact culture. So we are Hello Performance, we're an external, we are culture consultants, but our aim is to empower people within the company to influence their culture and not be dependent on consultants. So that is our goal. And we launched Culture Smart recently, and it's about empowering leaders within a company to improve their culture. So here are two examples. We've Bailey of Bristol, here make caravans and motorhomes, and we had a big shift and positive shift in their culture. Their engagement scores have risen drastically. And also we have Alan, who was part of the call last week, if you were here as well, and their pulse surveys that they're doing, as you see, the results are fantastic. So he has been part of the Culture Smart for 4 months, and they've worked out how to massively impact the culture, which is just wonderful to see. So there's just two examples of when we focus on culture, the impact that we can have. So this is our methodology. We have 5 stages to a great culture. We talk about intel and gathering the intel of where you are. We talk about designing the culture. It's like the house. You make sure that the foundations are in place. And then we activate the culture, bringing it alive and taking it from that lovely presentation or poster in the wall and actually making it part of the DNA. And then it needs to go into the embedding phase, where it becomes part of every part of the organization and ingrained in all the processes, whether it's meetings, hiring, onboarding, coaching managers. We have an operating system for embedding it to ensure it's really incorporated in, and then ultimately measuring it to ensure that we are improving. Because this is a long-term project. Always with culture, you want to shift that boulder forward all the time. And today's perfect about talking about culture as a KPI, because how do you know that you are really moving the culture forward? And that is something I will be asking you, is like, how do you actually know that we are shifting culture in the right direction? And I mean, what's the difference between July and August? What's the difference between August and September? Because as you know, you need live data to be able to tell you. And culture, what I hear from leaders a lot is culture is really hard to measure. How do I actually know? It's a bit fluffy. It's a bit, I can't really capture it. I'm not really sure what I should be doing anyway to improve it. How can I actually measure it? So let's talk about that today, and we will tell you what has worked in the companies that we work with. So let's do a little quick poll first. So get on your computers. Let's do a little poll. What's your opinion here? So 67% of leaders believe culture is more important than strategy or operations. How much of leadership time is spent on culture? 6, 16, 26, or 36? Give your opinion. If you've been on one of our calls before, you might have heard me quote this, so you have an unfair advantage on the others. But
I mean, I remember you telling me, but I don't remember what it was.
Oh, good. Okay, that's good, Pete.
I don't remember either, to be perfectly honest. So
yeah, well, that's it. That is the right way that it should be, that we can freshly check you. So what do we think? So if nearly 3/4 of leaders think this is really important, but how much time do we actually spend? So let's end the poll and see, share results. So 60% of you said 6%. So that's bang on. 6% of time, so of leadership time. So like nearly 70% of leaders think it's more important than strategy and operations. And if we consider how much time we spend running the company and on the strategy of the company, but only 6% is spent on culture, and it's believed that it's more important than them. So why aren't we spending more time with it? So only 6%. So I'll be quoting that again and again about that 6%. And that is actually, I believe, a failure in our part as leaders for the company, for our people and our employees, that we are not investing our time in that arena to make the place a better place to work or a great
Profit
place.
over people.
Say again, Bev?
Profit over people. But what companies don't understand is your people make profit.
Absolutely. And it's that kind of lack of understanding of, oh, that's just a nice to have, that's just keeping people happy. Yeah. And how do you move that, shift that, you know, that view that it's profit over people, that investing in our people makes the profit. So the ROI on so before, actually, let me just switch before we just go on to that. I think I have one on the ROI. No, we don't. So I think I come to it later. So yeah, the ROI is Harvard did a study of companies. They followed 200 companies over 10 years, and they looked at the ones that have a strong culture. And the ones that had a strong culture had a revenue of over 765% more than the companies with not a strong culture. So there is proof that if you invest in the culture, you're investing in the results. Because why is that? Engaged employees, happy employees, if it's a great place to work, then people are happier, they're more productive, there's less conflict, there's better teamwork, which means better results, better customer service, and hence better profits. It's a very logical solution, but much, much harder to convince sometimes leaders that it should be people over profit rather than profit over people. And I think they come hand in hand, because you can't have one without the other. You need a company, you need it operational, but a people-centric culture is a really key. So we have a company culture health score. Some of you may have filled this already. It's a free 30-question. Jump on there if you want to complete it to see where is your company health score. It's how well designed is your culture for success. There's about 30 questions. You could be filling them out as you're listening along here as well. So it gives you a final score on how well designed is your culture for success. So this isn't asking you how happy people are. This isn't asking you how, whether you have the ping pong table. This is all the foundations of culture that we know that makes culture success. Are they in place or are they not? So that is a good one to do. So, and it's a free one, and you can keep using it so that you can come back and measure it again later to see if in a month or two, have you improved or not. So the common barriers we see from leaders on culture is they say, oh, it just takes too much time. It's too long term. A lot of leaders are thinking more short term. I'm in this position for 2 years. I'm going to do things that make that impact instead of thinking of the longer term. And that culture, it's too complex. I don't know where to start. There's so many things we could make better. Do we focus on remote working? Do I focus on, well-being? Do I focus on pay? Do I focus on learning opportunity? What am I meant to be focusing on to get, should we be doing team building? Should I be communicating more? There's just so many things they sometimes just don't know where to start. We get that we're good already. It's ticked off. And we have done that. We've already bought the ping pong table is one I have actually heard quoted from a leader. Then when we actually evaluated the culture, it was really quite toxic compared to buying the ping pong table was not the solution. And we can't really measure it. So that's another complaint I hear from leaders, is going, I'd like to act in it, but it's really hard to show what we're doing is making a difference. So hopefully we'll give you some hints and tips on that today. So some facts, as we said, that first one we talked about in our poll. Tom, I see you've joined us there. You're more than welcome. You can come on screen so that you can ask questions as well if you'd like to. 69% of senior leaders credit much of the success during COVID to the culture. So it was like their it was their safety blanket during COVID, that when there was a strong culture, when everything else was taken away, that's what held the company together. And the data is showing that there's a widening gap between leaders, what leaders say about culture and what people actually experience. And I'm speaking at the IOD, the Institute of Directors, in 2 weeks. And actually, this is one of the areas I'm going to really focus in on, because what we believe the culture is compared to what it actually is. And how can you find that out? What other listening mechanisms can they have? My favorite saying, there's always a culture. You end up with one, whatever you do. So you can either choose to shape it and influence it, or take your chances. So there's always a culture. There's a culture on the football team. There's a culture at your yoga class. There's a culture in your family. There's a culture in your team. There's a culture in your company. So anywhere we have a collection of people, a culture with form. So it's really important that we design it and encourage it and influence it to go in the direction we want it. Think of it like your garden. You know, what kind of garden do you want? Do you want the wild free one and you let it grow how it wants? Or is there certain areas that you want to influence to have certain flowers or a look? Or is it good grass you want there? You have to then decide that and influence it. Make sure the soil is right, take out the weeds, plant what you need, then feed what needs to be supported and fed. And it's the exact same with culture, supporting and feeding the behaviors we want to see and weeding out the behaviors we don't want to see. So I love that garden analogy. So the cost of bad culture. So of course, culture is one of the biggest reasons people leave jobs. When they say it's their manager, it's the culture that allows their manager to behave in that way. And 64% of those rated the culture as poor when they left, 43% as average, and 22% is good. So something is not working. And the Gallup, which are the famous research employee research company, their 2023 report have had the worst engagement results since 2013, which is really, really, really shocking. So the number of disengaged is going up, the number of actively engaged is decreasing, and the number of in between is now at about 50%. So it just shows that whatever we're doing is actually not working. And this is what drives me and my team on our day-to-day, is going, we want to make a difference in the companies because it has such an impact on our lives. If you're in a job for 5 days of the week, you know, and we also think about, and we work a little bit over the weekend sometimes, so it's even more than that. We want to be in places that we want to work in, that we're making a difference and we're having impact. And that is so important. So here, what's the ROI of culture? So this is one of the famous ROIs, Harvard study. They followed 200 companies over 11, they followed them right through. But after 11 years, they saw the net income was up by 756%. So that is just one fact that's out there about the ROI of culture. So what gets measured gets managed, is what we always hear. We say what gets measured gets improved, because we can see what we're doing. Is it working or is it not? and what else do we need to do? So we want to raise that bar. We say what gets measured gets improved, and we want culture to be measured. And we believe everyone can measure culture from today. It doesn't have to be that big survey, you know, that big deep dive survey. We don't need a survey company to come in and do it for us. We all can measure culture straight away and starting small and seeing where we are at. It's working out what your priorities are. So generally in a company, we have people who are in the middle, which relates back to our Gallup survey. We have our culture champs over there, and they're the people we all know. They're the people who live and breathe the values, who live the culture, and they are like our promoters, as we would say if we were doing a net promoter score. They're the ones that go, great place to work. I love working here, and I'm really trying to have a positive influence. Neutral, bit, yeah, I could be swayed either way. It's all right. And then the disengaged, the ones who are actively, who can become toxic as well, who can have that toxic impact on a culture. And the ones you have to be most careful of is actually not the disengaged, it's the neutrals, because they can be easily swayed to either side. So we want to intervene and make sure we're getting them into that culture champ bucket, rather than hearing the moaning and the complaining and being shifted into that disengaged. They are also most likely to leave. Your neutrals are the ones most likely to leave. Interestingly, not the disengaged, high proportion of them, it's the neutrals are our biggest risk. Also, just on that one, when we come in first in, when we hire people new, they generally are enthusiastic, positive, they're excited about their new job. So they generally are want to be up here in the culture champs. Somehow, a lot of the time, we manage to shove them into neutral by the experience they have, their early experience in the company. So as leaders, I would say our job is those new hires that come in, we want to protect them. We want to give them a magic experience of the culture, and we want them to be there, up there as culture champs. What happens is that when they come in, it goes down over time and they are now in our neutrals. That should not be happening. So that's a very, really good one to measure, actually, is hiring satisfaction. After 3 months, 6 months, and 9 months, see where they're at. Are they in your neutrals, or are they up there in your culture champs? What was their experience? Because, hey, they're already bought in up here. Sometimes it's harder to get people who've been a long time in the company to buy in. Sorry, I got a bit distracted there on hiring. That wasn't part of my plan. So share with us, put on your chat or come on screen and tell us, what metrics are you using on your culture dashboard? We say that, what's on your culture dashboard, but what do you measure culture with right now? What do you get an indication of whether people are in a good place or not right now?
We don't have anything to measure our culture other than people moaning.
People moaning, yeah, or just getting your sense around there, Bev, your own sense around how much
I've been on the business now 8 months, so it's very new for me, but we don't have nothing in place to measure our culture. It's quite antiquated where I work, so we don't have no real process in place to measure it, and it's something I would like to put in place, but we don't have any proper technology. We don't have any view to invest in technology, or it's not very people orientated organization. I'm trying to change that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm exactly the same for me.
You're in the same situation.
Mm-hmm.
We have people that come in and join Culture Smart that are in the same situation, and we say we don't need to invest in the big surveys or ideally it's magic when you have it. It's so much easier. The HR systems, a lot of them now also do a surveys, but you can just do it by Microsoft Forms or and just polls. There's survey systems now online that are for free, so you can find out little bits. without doing a big job, you can find out little bits of information, Bev, and we can give you some ideas on what to consider for questions. But generally, so so we'll go on further. But yeah, so don't let the technology stop you, is my message.
It's not even technology, to be perfectly honest. It's there's a lot of roadblocks here. Oh God, I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Senior leadership team, you know, we can't take people out of what they're doing because they're stopped being productive. You can't get them to fill in forms because they stopped working. It's that kind of mentality. It's, you know, I'm battling daily with people, you know.
Productivity is number one.
It's, yeah, you can't stop them working. They can't stop working. They need to be working.
So really you're trying to influence them, then that, you know, if we work on the culture, we will have them more happier and they'll be more productive,
more effective, more engaged. Yeah, you work, you know, you
things that are not working.
You want to make more money, you need to happier staff. It's trying to, how do I evidence that? That's where I need to start by evidencing that with other organizations similar to ours, and we're quite a unique industry. It's very hard to evidence it, so I'm kind of working on that.
So what kind of industry are you in, Bev, again?
Food service.
Say again?
Food service. Yeah.
Food service, yeah. So producing products and selling it to B2B, to hotels. Yeah. So so lots of food service companies out there measure employee engagement as well. So it's getting evidence and also showing it on the results. So we encourage to start having a culture dashboard in some way of what information. Do you have staff turnover at the moment? Do you know how many people are leaving?
Warehousing and driving and stuff like that. It's quite common to have high turnover anyway. So
then we say then you should measure the cost relating to that. We say put that up in front of them, the cost, and we have a calculator for that, Bev, that we can share with you, that you can use to say what is the cost of each of these people leaving, or so what is the cost to us right now, and what could we do to influence that to reduce. So that's the, you know, if money talks, going from that direction. And then working with one team, Bev. So what we've noticed is working with, so if they're a manager out there who's, you know, quite people focused, people centric, and focusing on that team, if they have good results and measuring something in that team compared to a more unhappy team, and being able to do that internal comparison to say, you know, team A over here on this production line, you know, they always have good results, they've less waste, less rework, and their scoring is here, where this line over here, with their 20 staff, we're down here, and we can see the productivity. So what do we need to do? Without ever measuring culture, it's like, what can we learn from here to here? That's another way. Because then you can bring on board a manager who is, so starting small, a manager who is more people-centric and kind of buys into that.
Yeah, no, I agree. There's something I'm working on at the moment with with senior managers in terms of looking at investing in their staff at the moment. So yeah, good shout.
Good. And Peter is saying the same. So Harry, do you have culture metrics right now?
Yeah, so we use Microsoft Forms. And we just send that out once a year with pretty much the same questions on, apart from, so we only sent it out the other week. I just added another question on how people prefer to be communicated with, because part of our target is to increase engagement, and we use a HR software which is online and on an app. We don't always get a lot of people responding to it.
To the survey. That's a great indicator as well, Harriet, on culture. You know, number of people taking part in the survey. That's a really great, lovely one to use.
So yeah, I've just trying to get more people to respond to it. So we're up to 55%, on it at the moment, and I'm having another push. I've printed out a load more forms for people to do it paper.
Yeah, brilliant. Brilliant. And I see Louise is just going to come in. Louise, I was exactly going to say the same thing. Generating QR codes, putting it in the canteen so people can do it in their break time. So that would help solve your problem, Bev, as well. So you're not taking them away from the line. And asking them 1 or 2 questions is, we say kind of 3 questions in a short pulse. And then every 6 months to a year, doing a deep dive, which would be, we have one about 50 questions, which goes into, the development, what you think about the company, what you think about the success of the company, high performing teams. We have those questions. So all our Culture Smart, and they just take those questions on our program. They just take those questions and use Microsoft Teams or whatever they are. Microsoft Forms or whatever they want to do and blast away. But you can start really simple by what information do you have? So we talk about intel first. What information do you actually have? So for you, Bev, you have staff turnover, a great starting point. Harriet already is on the survey, so she'll have some result, but also how many people are taking that. So that tells you how engaged, how much do I care? If I'm a neutral, I'm not really going to bother because I don't really care that much. However, if I'm a culture champ, I will take part. So it's about, can you increase that number taking part and doing as much as you can to increase that number taking part. We always say give hourly staff that VIP treatment to make sure that you get their feedback. So good. So absolutely, it's about getting some indicators, using and then turning that into information that talks to the leadership. So if it's staff turnover, turn it into a dollar figure every month, tracking that dollar figure. So they were like, hey, why are we losing 200 grand? Every 6 months for this. Hey, how can we get that down? Aha, now we're opening up another conversation. So good. So we have Louise is doing a survey. That's brilliant. Harry, you're doing a survey. Michelle said they carried out a staff satisfaction survey, which came back relatively positive. That's really good. So you've already got that starting point, Michelle, and now next stage, maybe go a bit deeper. And then maybe I'll share some ideas on how to get real intel of whether the culture is shifting from month to month. So first of all, designing a culture is like designing the house, is like designing the garden. We talked a little bit about that already. Getting the design right, get it right from the how we are set up, and what is important to the company, what is valued, what is how do we best run meetings, how are we going to ensure the managers have the skills and confidence to instill those behaviors. How are we hiring, onboarding? And this is designed for companies without fancy systems. This is about being able to be practical and down to earth on what you can do right now. Or embedding. So stage 4, which I think just before we come to the measuring, just so you can see why we are measuring what we suggest to measure, is so as we say, we're gathering the intel. That's what we were talking about, Bev, there. What kind of intel is out there? Go on Glassdoor, see what people are saying about you on Glassdoor. For Harriet, how many people are taking part in the survey? That's the same for Michelle. What was the score coming in? And then the great one, go out and ask 5 people right now, what do they think is great about this culture and what do they think is not so great? Get some ideas of what we call those gems and shadows of the culture. That's the intel. Then we talked about design, activating, embedding. So once we get to the stage of embedding, which is the one is, right, we have the foundations of the culture. And we talk about how are we going to embed it in each of the aspects of the culture. Then and communication is what you've just mentioned as well. Each of these can then be measured. So if we're trying to improve hiring and onboarding and making sure we're not losing people within those 2 years of them coming, or within that first year, or within the 6 months of them arriving, how is our hiring? How good is our hiring? And how good is our onboarding? Let's measure that. Let's find that out. Then we're on to coaching managers. So coaching managers to have the skills and confidence to instill the behaviors we want to see. How many people have gone through, if we have a half an hour coaching program, and now our coaching program, we do a little session every week. How many people have gone through that? On the survey, go out and ask them, how many of you feel you have the confidence to have a difficult conversation? Gives you an indication of how many people really could pull up someone if they weren't behaving according to the culture. Leading, your leaders, great question to ask. Let me my brain think about it. Is our leaders' behavior consistent with our values? That's a great one to feed back to the leadership as well. Ooh, we have companies that hold themselves accountable to that and even pay bonuses according to it. Communication. Do you feel this company has open and transparent communication? Great question to get an answer to. Do you feel you are aware of how well the successes and successes of this company in the last month? Another way to find out how well the employees feel they're being communicated with. So each of those, I'm just throwing out answers there throwing out questions, because actually what we want to do is, if we are focusing on an area, we want to measure, are we better from last month? So that is what we want to do. And what we are focusing on is the area we want to measure. A lovely graph, I love this one, is that executives see 4% of the problem, staff see 100% of the problem. So asking and finding that information out is really, really critical, because you will only find that out if you hit that 100%. So, right. So once you have defined the purpose and the values of a company, we always talk about the behaviors, because this is really the clarity that helps employees work out what way I'm meant to behave and what way am I not meant to behave. So asking the questions, what do we do around here? What don't we do around here? If you have honesty as a value, or it's really important, for example, if finances, productivity is really important to us, as in we make a difference, and we make sure that we supply our customers with the demands they have, what behaviors do you expect everyone to have around that? Because then that's what helps you work out what you can be measuring to really see, is this boulder shifting on from month to month? So great ones to give you your culture status. So what's the culture looking like right now? So your culture design score, that was that QR code that I gave you, gives you an indication of how well designed your culture is. Use that as the first measure for yourself, going, here I am, this is how well designed our culture is, this is our culture health score. So that tells you how well designed the culture is. Engagement, so that you can use Net Promoter Score here, is, would you recommend this company to family and friends? Would you recommend this company to family and friends as a great place to work? So that gives you an indication of how many people are in that promoter, that they really love the company, and how many people are not. So Net Promoter Score, there's lots of different engagement questions you can ask to find out how engaged people are. So that tells you what status you have. Yeah. The other ones are where we just talked to Bev about, what is the impact of that culture? So staff turnover is a good one. Some companies have very low staff turnover and have poor cultures. So doesn't work for everyone, but it's a great one if there is a lot of hourly staff and high turnover, or measuring your high talent. So what is your talent looking like? And you can measure it for salaried, and you can measure it for hourly. What is the impact of that turnover? And turning that into dollars. So what is the impact? But that gives us an idea of our culture status. So so a lot of companies use one or two or some of these. So what I want to take you a step further now is, yeah, this is brilliant. I recommend all our clients to have these kind of things on our culture dashboards. because it gives a status. But engagement, for example, some companies only measure that every 6 months. So that's not going to be useful. If I'm going to wait till February, it goes out of the mind. The leadership are not really caring because we don't really see it again till February. And then we all get, when the result comes in, we all get focused again on it. We want something that is measuring month to month. So going back to our behaviors, if you have defined the behaviors, they're the goals we want to measure. So you want to know if it's improving, measure the behaviors. And even if you haven't agreed these, finding out what is important. So an example from one of our clients is one of their values is candid communication. So they want open and honest communication, is one of their really strong values. And one of their behaviors they've defined is we learn from our mistakes so we don't repeat them. We learn from our mistakes so we don't repeat them. So they go out with a pulse and they ask people to rate that. Do we do this or not? Do we do it always? Often, sometimes, rarely, never. And everyone comes back, and not everyone, but a high percentage come back and report, do we really live by this or not? You can see month 7, that was looking like in the red. The next month, in month 8, slightly improved. Why was it slightly improved? Because now suddenly the leadership have that information and say, woohoo, wait a second. If we're repeating mistakes, we're wasting money, we're not fixing stuff. What do we need to do? And a plan went out. They started to work on it. And it's a 6-month plan, but they are really focused on it now. And that will help shift that dial. They still have a long way to go, but they are happy because what? We are going in the right direction. Their staff turnover hasn't changed. Their engagement hasn't changed. And their design score hasn't changed because they're much further down the line. It's nearly too late. The people have checked out. It's too far down on the chain. Once you get to that high staff turnover or way down where you see those numbers increasing, it's too late. What I want to know is from last month to this month, did we make a difference? Are we now fixing more of our mistakes? And when you get managers focused on that, and when you do that as part of your communication, no problem, Harriet, then you are then you can really make the difference. So that's an example of how you measure from month to month. Another example is the same company where they have candid communication. Another one of their behaviors is my manager gave me valuable one-to-one feedback in the last month. They believe, so they've 3 areas of focus. One of their other areas of focus is they believe that if everyone is getting one-to-ones and they're getting valuable feedback in those one-to-ones, that we are really going to shift the culture. So that's actually not the real result there. I realize that's a copy paste from the page before. So they are even worse on that one. So that's not a real result, but it gives you an example of what we do. Or what the company is doing, not what we do, what the company is doing. So my manager gave me valuable one-to-one feedback in the last month. So that is a clear indication. Are we improving our one-to-ones and are we improving feedback? So if we're not, what do we need to do? Do they need a little bit more training on how to do feedback? Is it that we're not having one-to-ones? Yeah, so this is a real measure to help them shift and make sure they're getting those one-to-ones and making sure that they're valuable. And that will be a great one to move forward because they know that longer term, over the year, if we're improving these, then their culture is improving. They know that their turnover staff will decrease. They know that their retention will increase, which are really key ones for them. Keeping high talent is a big one for them. I mentioned, yeah. So you could also do it about the leaders or the people I work with. If you want to separate them, if you feel there's a difference, you can go out there and say, rate the following statements. Our leaders' behavior is consistent with the behavior we learn from our mistakes and we don't repeat them. And if you want to do with the people I work with, because sometimes employees have a view on what the leadership are doing compared to what the people around me, can really help bring and highlight any issues. So Capture what you have already. It's an indicator of culture. Think about what you have. Even productivity is an indicator of your culture, Bev. So using what's up there right now and sticking that on your simple dashboard. This is made on, you can make these on Canva. We recommend making them on Canva, CANVA, easy dashboard. You can make slides, you can make infographics or whatever, putting that up and then showing it to management and saying, right, what are we going to measure to ensure that we're shifting this dial?
I like the idea of what Michelle's, was it Michelle or, oh no, it's Louise. Sorry, apologies, Louise. Where you've put surveys in the canteen. I think that's probably the easiest for us because they just don't have access. A lot of our guys don't have access to computers. I like the idea of that. It's just making sure I get the questions I want to ask right. That's key for me.
They'll be on their phones on the breaks as well. So using the phones for QR code really is the easiest way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Some of them are a bit, I mean, we've got guys that have been here for 30, 40 years. They'll see that as an invasion of their privacy. They're a bit of a strange bunch here sometimes.
Put paper ones out. See, does that work? And have a little box down to slot into, make it as you know,
give them an option. I think I think that's a really good idea. It's just about the key questions that I want to ask. I think for me, that's
yeah. The key questions, exactly. And what is where, you know, what do you know right now and what? So we can't ask everything, and it's what are the areas we're going to focus on in the next, because you need to measure month for month and they need to be the areas you're focusing on. So like if communication is asking questions around that, if it's you know, moaning, for example, is something, you know, measuring that over the 6 months. And Louise is saying, in the canteen, the managers can't oversee them completing it. So psychologically worse for the more honest. Absolutely. Or put in envelopes and post to home and let them take home. We've also done free coffee and donuts if they come in 10 minutes early in the morning. We have done staying after, that they get free something else, where you invite them in to a room that has it, or the canteen. We used to do that with our factory workers. We used to actually pay them for also. We actually moved on to, we give them free croissants first, but really to increase that engagement, we actually paid them for those extra 10 minutes. That was because there was this, they believed that there was a difference between the salaried had time to do it or the hourly didn't have time to do it. So we ended up agreeing to pay them. But that was later. Multiple nationalities, yeah, absolutely. Get them translated. Or bring them together in groups. We've done that where we've had like maybe one good Polish speaker. We've gathered Polish together, had that good Polish speaker in the room with us, Polish English speaker, and they answered any questions that weren't there. Overcoming any of those barriers with hourly workers. So technology is one, make it as easy as possible, because they don't want to answer emails, and they don't want to, they might be even afraid of doing emails. Language, the perception of time, that salaried have more time to do because they're sitting at a computer compared to hourly. So overcoming those is really, really critical.
Yeah.
Just getting started is really key.
I suppose at least if you give them something they can complete in the canteen, or they can just fold it up and take it home and bring it back and pop it into like a little letterbox and stuff, and then I can leave it to the regionals to kind of bring them home from the different depots, which makes it so much easier. I mean, unlike Michelle, I don't have issues with the language barriers, so I'm kind of lucky on that respect. I think for me, it's getting them to not write anything derogatory around. We've just got a lot of interesting characters, let's put it that way, but things will change. I'm confident things will change.
Brilliant. So our Culture Smart certification is for HR leaders and MDs of smaller companies to be able to have something on their culture dashboard that costs no money, designing around the culture, having a culture plan, building that operating system so that it continually improves month in, month out, and then eventually having culture as a KPI as part of that. So that is our Culture Smart program. It's built for companies to make a difference. So I would say book in if you would like a call, and we can talk about where your culture is at, where you want to go, and if Culture Smart would be good for you. We'll put the I realize the time, so I'll just put that in the chat. We were doing too much talking to what time? Oh, we're 4 minutes over, so let's wrap up. Thanks, Louise, saying good luck, Bev. Small start and just call it a sample. If the response is low initially, absolutely. Don't worry about it. It's a starting point. It's a baseline. And I would say it's good when it's not good at the beginning, because then you've something to measure on. Good, right. Cool. Quickly around the room, what your gems and pledges are. What would you take away today, and what are you going to do with this information? Remember, we always want an impact and make a difference. So Louise, you can write on the chat if you want there. What's your gem? What did you take away, and what are you going to do differently? Identify culture champions. Love it. Pete, you're off mute there.
Yeah, so I think my main takeaway is that middle group of people that are neutrals. And you said, well, the biggest risk, I guess actually the biggest risk are the people that are actually detractors but don't leave. Actually, they're a risk in a different way, aren't they? Not risk of leaving, but risk of staying.
Absolutely.
And just a quick question. You put up around the Harvard study. Have you got any references for the Harvard study? Because that looks like sounds like an interesting article.
Yeah. There's actually 3 articles, Pete, that are really interesting. So I will send you the Harvard one, and there's 2 other ROI facts that we use as well when we're used to convince leaderships.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah,
absolutely. So let me send that out. So what I'll do is I'll put that in the email after, Pete, for you.
Great, thanks.
Yeah, and I'll put Bev, I know you probably asked me for it as well, so I can put that in all your emails saying the ROI and the link to it. Yeah. So follow up on Michelle, fantastic. Follow up on staff satisfaction, more regular performance reviews, get my fellow managers more on board with challenging the culture for the better. Love it, Michelle. Fantastic. It's something that needs to be constant every month. So that's why a little bit, something that you can put in front of people like a culture dashboard is like gold. A number, something that's getting better or not getting better. Yeah, and working out, what do I have already that's easy to put on there, and what else would work good on there. Bev, you're the as well. What did you take from today, and what are you going to do with that information?
I think for me, it's interesting. I'm not the only one in this situation. Pete, thanks for that. I'm not alone.
Yes.
I've kind of been, when I first started, my first thoughts here were, oh wow, this is an interesting culture. I've come from, tech to this kind of industry, and it was like, this needs to change. I need to put an engagement survey out, and I was thinking, oh, how do I do this? Technology doesn't exist. Everybody moans. It's like it was kind of mind blowing, but actually, as time's gone on, I've been thrown into so many different projects that now it's kind of come up again. And looking at what Michelle's done and how she's worked on that, it's kind of now allowed me to go away and actually think this can be done. It is possible. I'll start working on it again and build that up over time on making this something that needs to be regular. But I think also because I've got to know and work with the senior leadership team over a period of time, how they work, what their mindset is, although it's not perfect, I can start to kind of influence them a bit more now. I've built that relationship with them, and hopefully
that trust, build that trust and using what's important to them, starting at that starting point. That is the critical.
And for me, it's also, it's evidence. I need evidence-based facts on, again, what Pete's asked for. If I could give them evidence-based facts on how culture will start, the MD is just focused on profit and money making. If I can evidence that actually, if you start working from the bottom, it will then start leading to the stuff that comes out the top. So
absolutely, absolutely. And sometimes, you know, it's on our Culture Smart as well. Michelle is saying our workplace sounds very similar. I come from a very corporate background. Yeah, coming was a shock. Absolutely. So and I would say it's actually the one of the nicest benefits of getting a community together around culture on our Culture Smart was just like that, Bev, hearing, going, oh God, I'm not the only one, and other companies at this, and what have you done that's worked, and that sharing and learning is actually the greatest. So our goal of building a culture community, which is our Culture Smart, is key. And Louise, yeah, all my background is food, so I'm part of the food company, so that is also why we reach out to people who are from food background as well. That I've worked in the big corporates, I've worked in the family, and that's where I learned my trade. Of switching people around. And we had a factory in Sweden, which was 400 people, and we had another one in Norway, which I was over, and we had a time to turn them around. So I learned on the ground how to do this. So we would invite you to come and hear more about our community, our Culture Smart community, where we do live sessions like this. So we walk through, we share everything you need to be able to do that. So we would give you the questions to ask, Bev. We would help you design the culture. That's what is a Culture Smart's about, is empowering you to be able to go from where you're at forward. So come and join us, and we can tell you a little bit more about it. We'd love to have a conversation with you. Same for you, Louise, same for you, Michelle. Jump on a call, and we can walk you through what we offer to support you guys from where you're at now going forward. Not fancy, building from where you're at now and what constraints that you have currently. Okay. Happy Thursday. Have a great weekend. And we're not doing a masterclass next week because it's half term, so I have all the kids. But we'll be back again, I think, in 2 weeks' time. So watch out and jump on a call, book in one. That would be great. Okay.
Thanks, Marita. As always.
See you, Louise. See you, Michelle. Bye.
Thanks, guys. Bye.